Hello, everyone. Cinema Recall Podcast. I am here with Cayley from Once Over with Cayley, and now I'm going to play for you our theme music. This podcast may contain adult language, adult situations, spoilers, and some brief nudity, so parental guidance is suggested.
We have such sights to show you.
After about 5 minutes of this movie, you're gonna wish you had 10 beers.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
So, what would you little maniacs like to do first?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Oh, well. La-di-da, la-di-da, la-la, yeah.
Welcome back to the Cinema Recall Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cinema Recall Podcast. I am the Vern. Thank you very much for listening, subscribing, watching, whatever you're doing right now. Appreciate you very much. I am here again with the always wonderful, the beautiful, the funny, the intelligent, the always charming Cayley from Once Over with Cayley, aka Lucy Tatebots from Who Are These Podcasts. Welcome to the show.
I am so honored to be here. It is always such a blast to talk movies with you, and I'm so pumped for this one in particular.
Oh, I know why. Because I know that the way to your heart is with Crispin Glover. And yes, you saw the tab here. We are talking about Willard. I'm holding the DVD right now. That's right. You can gaze on the Crispin Glover for you. That's how I get into your heartstrings.
That is the 100%. Crispin Glover and Taco Bell. Those will always do it for me. That's the way.
Crispin Glover promoting Taco Bell.
Yeah, I would probably just keel over in excitement. It would be amazing.
Oh,
it would be amazing.
If I could find a way to have Crispin Glover deliver Taco Bell to you,
I would cry. I would legitimately start crying. I would be like, this is the best day of my life. And then I would invite him to eat Taco Bell with me. And he would be like, no, you're not goth enough. I'm not interested in you. And I would be really sad.
Oh, you're totally goth in every ways right there. I do want to let all of our watchers and listeners know, Cayley's been like a good time guest on our show. She's on our Dogtooth episode, and then she was on our Howard the Duck episode. I loved being on her show, talking about the film Society. Yes. But I first got wind of you, Cayley, because of your other appearance on the Who Are These Podcast show as Lucy Tatebots.
That's correct. Yep.
You featured our show on your podcast. And I gotta admit, when I first heard that, I was a little bit upset and like, I was very defensive because this show is my baby, and I was like, what? People making fun of my show. But then I realized, it's all in just good fun. And hey, I appreciate that very much. And hey, you know what? I know that my show is not for everybody. And I kind of like that. Kind of like Crispin Glover's not for everybody. Our show is not for everybody either. But some people are fans of it. You like it, and I appreciate you very much for doing those. So.
Yeah, I never would have found out about you, I don't think, if it hadn't been for that Who Are These Podcasts episode, because I'm not a huge listener to movie review shows. I am really picky about hearing reviews because I like to have seen the movie first. I like to have formulated my own opinion. So a lot of the time I'm not seeking out other review shows. So I am so thankful for that Who Are These Podcasts appearance, because it introduced me to you, and I discovered how amazing you are.
Aww.
And, one of the things about Who Are These Podcasts is it is very much a roast style show.
Sure.
So as much as they like making fun of other people, you can make fun of them all you want. They mess up everything all the time.
Okay.
And that's one of my favorite things to do also. So
I love
them.
They can take the hits as well as give them.
Yes, exactly.
I appreciate that very much. And that's true. When doing table play shows or content creators like we do, you have to have a little bit of a thick skin of sorts to do stuff.
Absolutely. I recently had somebody asking me actually all about what kind of, they asked, what are your recommendations when you get into podcasting or having a YouTube channel? And I said, if you can't take hate comments, then you shouldn't do it. If you are worried about how much people like you, then you shouldn't do it. You should be doing it because it's a love of what it is. And I think that your analogy to Crispin Glover is exactly perfect. Not everybody likes him as an actor. He's a weird and wacky dude, but he keeps doing what he's doing because I think he really loves what he's doing.
Exactly. I know that he takes projects that he likes, and from his work in Back to the Future and Charlie's Angels and this movie Willard, River's Edge, I just think that he has a good wide eclectic range, but all of his characters are different. People think that he just plays the same type of like weird, wacky, eccentric guy, and that's not the case at all. He's just a man that really loves movies, and I greatly appreciate that very much about him. All right, let's do this. Let's go ahead. Actually, let's do because Cayley. Let's do it. We're gonna do this right now because I really want to get into our conversation about Crispin Glover and Willard, and I just want to get this stuff out of the way. So I'm gonna play a quick ad spot from another amazing podcast show, and then we will be right back. So I apologize, folks. You can hear just a slight pause here. All right, here we go.
We got to take a short break, but Cinema Recall will be right back after these ad spots.
Hello again, me popsicles, and welcome to Season 2 of Science Fiction Remnant.
Go ahead and grab your multipass, a drink, and sit back with us and geek out about sci-fi.
Let's pick each other's brain. We want you to be part of our intimate conversation about science fiction topics.
And hang around to the end of the episodes for the real-world science that was inspired by your favorite science fiction.
Let's do this. Let's talk about science fiction topics in books, movies, TV shows, and games.
At Science Fiction Remnant, you are invited to listen in.
Listen now on Apple Podcasts,
Spotify, Anchor,
Audible, GoodPods,
or whatever you listen to podcasts.
You can catch the video pods on our YouTube a month later.
And don't forget your multipass, you me popsicles.
Science Fiction Remnant is brought to you by the hashtag This Is Sci-Fi. No cat and cuties were harmed in the making of this commercial. Ba, 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 ba.
I had to play this before we start our conversation. Just 3 minutes.
And the two of us need look no more. We both found what we were looking for. With a friend to call my own, I'll never be alone. And you, my friend, will see you've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Recall Podcast. I just had to play just a little bit of Crispin Glover's cover of Ben from the movie Willard, 2003.
It's beautiful. I love it. I love it. You really can't talk about the movie Willard, the original movie Willard, the movie Ben. You can't talk about any of it without talking about that song. And Crispin's cover of it is beautiful.
Now, I don't know if you can see behind me here, but I am playing the clips of the original Willard behind me. Now, I want to get into the original too because I was having a Willard overload this weekend, okay? Because I rewatched the movie, which of course I'm showing right here. Yep. And then I rewatched it again with the commentary tracks from Glenn Morgan, Crispin Glover, and Ermy. Then I watched Willard last night, and then I watched Ben, the sequel.
Oh, yeah.
And you
are on overload. You are fully prepared.
I've got so much things to say, but I do want to talk briefly about Crispin Glover and about the first time you saw him in a movie, what your favorite performances are, and just generally your vibe about this actor.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my first memory of seeing him is probably just from Back to the Future.
Of course, yes.
And that is, that's when everybody kind of gets introduced to him. But the first time that I remember really falling in love with him was watching him dance in Friday the 13th Part 4.
Yes.
I just like him doing that weird awkward dance. He's like throwing his arms above his head, his hips are doing wacky things, and you don't know what to think about him at all. And I remember at the time one of my friends was a huge movie buff, and they said to me, "Oh, if you like him dancing in that, then you're gonna love the movie Reuben and Ed." And so I watched the movie Reuben and Ed, which is a weird, surrealistic, crazy thing. Most infamously, his character in Reuben and Ed was the character that he was playing when he went on Letterman and had all of those crazy, weird, like late night where he like almost kicked Letterman in the head sorts of things.
Yes. Okay. I remember that.
Yes. So when he went wild on what is it, The Tonight Show? I'm so bad at late night shows. Whatever show.
David Letterman. Late show. David Letterman.
Yeah. So when he went on that show, that was in order to promote the movie River's Edge. And it wasn't until 4 years later that Reuben and Ed came out, if I remember correctly. So nobody had seen that character yet, but he went on on Letterman as that character. And so everybody just thought that he was like this weird, crazy person. So when I saw Reuben and Ed, I was like, oh my God, I get it. He wasn't being crazy. He was just doing a character. And he was like very, very preemptively promoting this thing he was really excited about. And I think that I'm so excited about him as an actor, not only because I find him to be very attractive and very mysterious and enchanting, but also because his experience with Back to the Future really showed him how to take roles that he wanted and how to make those roles something that he cared about. And he became very selective, I think, as an actor. And he not only is a wonderful actor, but I think he selects roles that are perfect for him. And that's why I was so excited when Willard got announced, because I was like, oh my God, this is him. This is Crispin Glover. This is so perfect.
Yeah, it's one of the best roles he's done. I have not seen Reuben and Ed, but I put on my list to watch. Like you,
it's a bizarre one.
Okay, I'm very intrigued by that. Like you, yes, of course, watch Back to the Future, and I really liked his determination to keep that character his own, so much that he wanted to sue the filmmakers in Part 2 for using his likenesses for that as well. And he should, because that is his character. And I know that Zemeckis and Bob Gale had issues with Glover on the set of Back to the Future, and they didn't like him on there. Fuck them. I mean, I love Back to the Future. I think it's an amazing movie, but I think the way they treated him after that is just bullshit.
I think it is too, but on the other hand, I guess I can give them a little bit of credit because I could imagine that he is challenging to work with. I think that he's so passionate, and of course his father was an actor, which means that he really saw Hollywood in a lot of interesting ways. He basically grew up in Hollywood. And so he knew a lot about what was going on and how people were getting treated. And so I imagine that because of that, he is a bit of a stickler for what his beliefs are. And so I'll give them a little bit of credit. I'll say I imagine he could have been a challenge to work with. On the other hand, just let him have free reign. You know, when he went on to do Charlie's Angels as Thin Man, he initially didn't like the dialogue that they had created for the character because he felt like it was too much exposition. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, no, I'm not saying these words. And they allowed him to create that character in his way. And as long as you kind of give him that creative freedom, I think that he becomes incredible.
There was some on behind the scenes of Willard, the beta sequence where him and Arlie, Ermy, Mitch and Martin are fighting. Crispin had the idea to slam himself into the door. And he said in the commentary track, him and, by the way, Arlie Ermy loves Crispin Glover. He says that he's like one of the most professional actors that he has ever worked with. And it was such a joy doing scenes together with them. So when they were doing that scene of them in the office, Crispin had the idea to slam himself into the door. and just really just take down. And all this crew and directors were shocked by it, but totally matched that character that he was doing. So
I have a question for you because I haven't listened to the commentary track for this, I'm sure that I'm missing out in a huge amount. There is one line in the movie, I think it's shortly after. Oh, it's when they're at the funeral. I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
Okay.
But they're at a funeral.
Yeah.
And Willard, the character, so Crispin Glover, says in a very heated way, he says, "Why do I have to pay for what my parents did?"
Yeah.
And I always wondered if that was kind of his little dig at Hollywood, or even having his parents both be a part of Hollywood. So I don't know if parents necessarily means literal parents, or if it means a figurative generational, what people did in the past. So like what people did on Back to the Future to me, how I've been previously treated. Did they make any commentary about that?
Didn't make any commentary about that, though. The only commentary that they made is director Glenn Morgan was like, I really wanted to do another take of that, like a close-up shot of you, but I was afraid you would not be able to get to that level you were at. And Glover's like, no, I would totally love to do that. I can totally get into that over and over again. That's no problem. All right. As I mentioned before, yes, Back to the Future, and I see your point there too about the filmmakers from Back to the Future. But regardless, I loved him in Friday the 13th, Part 4, of course. You want to dance? It's good. Feels right. That is my move I'm going to do on every dance floor talking to any girl I see. I'm just going to try that weird wacky moments right there because worked for him.
I'll tell you. It won't work 100% of the time, but when it works, it will be the right girl. That's what I have to say about that.
That is true. All right. 100% true. All right. So yeah, love that. All right. Let's get into Willard. Came out in 2003, directed by Glenn Morgan, written by Glenn Morgan, based on the film Willard from 1971, which I'll get into later. This one, of course, stars Crispin Glover, Laura Harring, Arlie Ermy, few other ones. I didn't realize this too, but as watching this, the secretary of Mr. Martin, I forgot her name. That's Ashlyn Gear. That's former porn star Ashlyn Gear.
Oh, I did not even notice that.
So for your friends and my friends too of the Porn Stash podcast, they can review this as a tie-in as well.
I was just going to say, she looked familiar to me, and maybe now I don't want to admit that, but...
Okay, so yeah, that's Ashlyn Gear. The story, of course, follows Willard Stiles, Crispin Glover's character, and he's alone in this big house, has a very domineering mother, a very evil boss, and just does not have any friends at all, until he comes across a few friends, mainly some rats, two of them named Socrates and Ben. Socrates is an all-white rat, and we of course got Ben, this giant like Gambian rat going on there.
It looks more like a chinchilla than a rat for sure.
I was expecting like the wings to fly out of that guy. That guy just looks like massive as hell. So, and the story, if you've never seen it before, Willard befriends these rats, and they can all do his bidding. And this movie has a great combination of using real rats, as well as animatronics and special effects. But the key thing is his character there. And when you first saw this movie, let's just get your general thoughts about this. Have you seen the original before you saw this?
Okay, so I went and saw this in theaters.
Yep.
And I was so excited. And at the time, I was not a huge movie buff, so I didn't even know that there was an original.
Fair enough.
And then I want to say it was like a year or two later, I was talking about my love of this movie, my love of Crispin Glover, and somebody was like, "Oh, have you seen the original?" And I was like, "The what now?" So that was when I went and I binge watched. I got the original Willard, which I think is 1971, and then Ben, which was a couple of years later, maybe 73.
Yeah.
And I watched both of those, and they're very different movies, but I loved them equally for different reasons. The incredibly different ends, incredibly different means, very different feel, even though there's still that kind of darkness in all of the movies.
I think what makes the remake and the original different from each other, of course, it's the color aspects of it. The original is much more bright and colorful. This one's a little more dark and gothic. But it's that Shirley Walker score that sets it apart. The very beginning of this movie, she said in a behind-the-scenes documentary that she wanted to use accordions in this because accordions are like sort of like the musician of the Outcast and the Geats. And the accordions, they say that the accordion, the banjo, and the bagpipes are three instruments you never want to use in a score because they seem to drown out the other instruments. And I know that producer was it now James Wan? No, yeah,
James Wong.
Yeah, James Wan was concerned about using it on there because he thought it sounded too French, and people would confuse the movie with Amelie. I'm like, there's no way you're gonna confuse Willard with Amelie.
No confusion whatsoever. Yeah,
I did not get that. But to me, those accordions just sort of match Willard's persona and his insights and everything like that, which I really, really appreciate.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think, in this movie, we get kind of started with almost a Tim Burton-esque sort of opening credit scene. We get some stop motion. We get, and it feels. I think you're hitting the nail exactly on the head. But it also sets us up for a little bit more suspense than the original. And I think that it's that suspense that makes this movie work extremely well, because not only do we have the character of Willard causing a lot of suspense, but we also have Socrates and Ben, who are more than just characters themselves. They embody the characters of these weird gothic. We become very involved with them, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I would say that Socrates and Ben represent both the light and dark side of Willard's persona.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Socrates is who we kind of like to be light and the light side of him, and Ben is what he really kind of wants. He wants to like destroy all these things. Another huge,
and he's trying to push that aside. He's trying to embrace his softness and push away his aggression.
But his aggression keeps coming back. As much as he tries to get rid of his aggression, it's just going to keep coming back there. Love that very much. I also love the fact, too, I mentioned, too, about the cinematography. I like the fact that in this new one, compared to the original, because in the original, there is a lot more people involved in Willard's life than the remake. In the original, it's not just his mother, but all of her mother's friends. They have like this huge birthday party for him at the start of the movie. Yeah. And in this new one, Willard is alone. His mother is near dying. And I love that actor. I'm just trying to remember if I had it written down here. Nope, it's not on the thing. I don't have it on there. But the lady who played her mother, great job with that. And she's near death.
She was amazing. And she starts out, I just want to mention about her before we move on from her. She starts out as just like a foreboding voice. She, we don't see her initially. And then this like reveal when you finally see her, she's this decrepit old lady. And that's all that Willard has. And you're like, oh no, this guy is like, he's completely alone. He's completely alone. He needs somebody or something.
Oh, yeah. Jackie Burroughs.
Yeah.
Is her name.
She was great.
She was great. I love the scenes when they're together and she's like, if you had a stronger name, that Mr. Martin wouldn't make fun of you anymore. I'm going to call you Clark from now on. All right?
I love that.
Oh.
Okay, didn't she name him?
Yeah, she did.
That is such a genius, and that is kind of the dark comedy of this film. And there is a lot of very dry humor in this movie. And I think that that's one of the first times where we really get to see it. Because she's insulting him by something that she gave to him. So again, we have that kind of theme of like, do I have to pay for what my parents did? You named me Willard, and now I'm suffering because I'm named Willard, even according to you, although you're the one who inflicted this upon me. Crazy.
We should mention too that Willard's father has passed away due to a suicide, and that Willard's father and Mr. Martin, R.D. Ermey's character, has started this manufacturing plant. I'm not really quite sure what they make there. All I know is that they build things, and Mr. Martin has been having Willard work for him at his factory, doing purchase orders. And when Willard gets to work, another lady is there, played by Laura Harring, fresh off of Mulholland Drive.
I was going to say, the lovely Rita. I just kept calling her Rita in my notes. She can't be anybody but Rita to me.
That's true. That's true. So just isn't there, and she's great. And Mr. Martin explains to Willard that the reason why she's here is because you've been late so many times. And Mr. Martin really wants Willard to sell him his house so that he can turn it into a parking lot. And it's there's a lot of insinuating that he is the one that is responsible for his father's death as well, and stuff going on there. I loved Arlie Ermy in this. This is so good.
I hate to say his best work because obviously nothing can compare to Full Metal Jacket.
100%.
But he is so evil and yet so funny. Every time that he is screaming in this movie, I am laughing. I'm laughing so much. He is like the embodiment of evil, and yet you're laughing. You can't wait for something bad to happen to him. You know something bad is going to happen to him, and you're like on the edge of your seat waiting for it. But on the other hand, every time he comes on screen, you're like, it's so funny. Like he's that perfect combination of like goofy and terrifying.
And a lot of his lines in this were ad-libbed. And that's one of the great things he said about making this movie, is that the director was not super confined to the script. And he said, in most movies I do, it seemed like the writer didn't really understand how writers or people actually talk. And I love the fact that director Glenn Morgan said, yeah, go ahead, do free range with the words, make them your own to find the character that you want. The script is basically the blueprint. And a lot of the stuff he said in that movie were mostly just outtakes. And I should mention this too, folks, is that Willard, they were really trying to have an R-rated movie when this movie was being made. They really wanted to be R-rated and do it at test screenings and studio notes. They changed it to PG-13. So a lot of the great humor that Arlie Ermy has in this movie are found on the deleted scenes of the disc, and they are great because him just put out the F-bombs were just absolutely brilliant. So before we
I can't wait to go watch those now. I'm excited. I don't know why I didn't get around to watching the deleted scenes and listening to the commentary before you and I talked, but now I'm like, okay, those are like top priority for me. I'm very excited.
Oh, they're very fun. Let's do this right now because I have it here. We're going to get more into our conversation about Willard, but I'm going to play a quick ad spot from Willard. A little quick preview here. So give me 1 second.
Willard's styles didn't quite fit in.
Let's go drink. I'm not hitting on you, Willard.
But he's suddenly become very popular.
You're the best friends that I ever had.
Now, a guy who could never get a break.
What part of you're fired don't you understand?
He's about to get even.
They'll do anything I tell them.
Willard.
Did you hear something?
It's just the wind.
Rated PG-13.
All right. The one thing the marketing team did right was use the Smashing Pumpkins song there.
I never heard that before. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was probably the only good thing. So I feel like I know I'm kind of going all over this film right now, in which I'll get more back into the marketing of the film as we go back into the story of this. So we mentioned Arlie Ermy in this, Laura Harring. And I thought that both are great. I love Laura Harring. I kind of wish that she was used more in this than she is. I don't think she's used as enough.
So on the one hand, I agree with you. On the other hand, I will say, and again, I'm kind of diving into the end of the film, but her character arc is that she becomes Willard's coworker,
Mm-hmm.
and she clearly has some sort of interest in him. It's hard to tell if she just feels, sympathy for him, or if she actually cares about him, or if she likes him, or it's hard to kind of tell exactly how she's feeling about him. I like that they don't dive into a full-on love story between the two of them.
I agree with that.
Especially in 2003, that was the norm. Was, okay, we have this suspense movie, now we need to have a love interest. And for me, if they had done that, I would have been like, snooze fest. We don't need this. Don't pad out the movie with this malarkey. So I agree that I would have liked to see a little bit more of her. However, the only storyline that I can come up with that would have been a little bit more of her would be a love story. And so I wouldn't have wanted to see that, It
would have been too much like The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I can almost see like Arlie Ermey's character become kind of obsessed with her and him kidnapping her. And then here's Willard and all his rats being the heroes and chasing after them and having this big, huge moment too. And soon you'll see her having this dance duet with a rat and all that other good stuff right there. So, yeah.
All right. Maybe I would have liked to see that.
See, that would be kind of cool there. Should mention, too, that before Crispin Glover was casted in Willard, the production was having a lot of issues before that happened. There is a brilliant, 75-minute documentary on the making of Willard that is absolutely just brilliant. I want to say, what's her name now? Did I have it on here? Nope. Shoot. I lost it. But I think her name is like Kim NG. I'm going to mispronounce her name. I apologize about that. But she did a wonderful documentary called The Year of the Rat, which is absolutely brilliant. Talks about everything from the pre-production to the production to the release of the movie and test screenings and everything. But before the movie got into production, there were a few weeks they had to keep pushing their production date because they have not found a Willard yet. There was one of his friends was going to be in the movie, the director's friends, and then his wife was originally going to be cast in the role that Laura Harring got, and they were going to try and find other actors for this. They tried Macaulay Culkin, he passed. Joaquin Phoenix passed. Mark Ruffalo, all these actors were offered the role for this, but they did not agree to the praises that were made. And even after Crispin Glover was casted in this, they had to wait a few weeks because he was finishing production on another movie. And I think that movie he was making was Charlie's Angels or Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, because those came out around the same year.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So, and I'm glad they waited for the Crispin Glover.
Me too.
Because he was just...
I think that either Macaulay Culkin or Joaquin Phoenix could have done a good job. But obviously, for selfish reasons, I'm so happy that it was Crispin. And not only that, I think Macaulay Culkin could have gotten weird enough. And obviously, Joaquin Phoenix is weird. But I think that there's something about Crispin Glover's specific brand of weirdness that tailors exactly to this character of Willard.
Very much so. And he just matches that perfectly. All right. So into the story of the film, Willard is having issues with his boss, and he has this new girl. Not so much a love interest. And I love the fact, too, that they don't play it that way. He just appreciated of the friendship aspect of it. And it didn't really need to build on that thing. They try. I hate it when movies have this weird I don't want to say Willard's a weird character, but he kind of is. And I have to say this: watching this movie again, I totally understand why Mr. Martin is upset with him, because he's coming late to work, and he seems to have all these bad excuses. And when Willard says, "Well, my mom's not feeling well," and Miss Martin says, "Well, if you really care about your mother, you would put her in a home, and you would be at work on time to take care of your mother," which is true. I mean,
it's not wrong. It's not wrong.
A lot of stuff he's saying here is just like what normal people, I don't want to say normal people because I'm not normal myself. That is why, folks, we listen to our episodes, I'm going back and forth between the end of the movie, the beginning of the movie, what's going on behind the scenes. We're just going all over the place because I'm hoping that you have seen this movie before. And if you haven't, that's really on you. And I'm just here to tell you that it's great. All you need to know about Willard, a guy who's very kind of eccentric and crazy, but handsome and debonair. He has these rats, and they get him to do his bidding. And for a person who has been like picked on and whatnot in the past, and I'm sure you have dealt with your deal of bullies as well, it's really kind of refreshing to see a movie like this and having someone get their revenge and whatnot.
This is a revenge movie. It doesn't get talked about as being a revenge movie very frequently, but it truly is. This is about Willard has been downtrodden. The world has hurt him. And sure, maybe he could take control over some of those things, but instead of taking control, he takes revenge. And I think that that's very, very, very exciting. I love that. That is a fun kind of movie.
It is. And in a way, he does want to take control of things because he doesn't want to lose his house. He's very protective of this. Even though he has issues with his mother, he still loves her very much. I love the sequence when he first discovers Socrates. Socrates gets caught because there are all these rats and his mom's complaining about all these rats being around. So he sets a bunch of traps and he traps one of them. But he feels kind of bad about it. And so he sets Socrates free using I think vegetable oil, and his mom's trying to get into the bathroom and she's like, is it loose or is it hard? And at first, when I first watched this, I'm thinking that, is she talking about his erection? But no, it's about his poops and everything. So I'm like, that's really kind of weird. But after he gets Socrates loose and he's taking his mom to bed, and his mom's looking over there, what's that smell? Is that cooking oil? Oh, Willard, you're too old to do stuff like that still. We need to get you a girlfriend, Willard.
It's so genius. And I mean, even little things like when he goes to buy the rat traps.
Yes.
There's so much little comedy in those. You get to see the panning of the camera saying do you want to have to touch the dead mice? And so you're learning a lot about him as a character in these beginning parts. And of course, it turns out that he's, not jerking it. He's playing with rats in the bathroom, which is just a hilarious concept.
Oh, the part that always gets me too is when he's with Socrates and he just whispers, let's go to bed.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so cute. It's so cute. I love Socrates. Socrates is just the most adorable little buddy in the whole world.
So a few of my friends, they've had mice and rats before, and they are great. They'll crawl on your shoulder and you can pet them. The only thing I do not like about mice or rats are the noises they make.
Yeah. And it's funny, we don't get, obviously we get to hear the rat noises in this movie, but it's not so much that it's jarring. I think that whoever was doing kind of the Foley work and the post-production adding in those noises, they understood that the sound of rats is nails on a chalkboard and nobody wants to hear that. So yes, we get those little squeals, but it's not so overbearing that you can't focus on anything else that's going on in the movie.
It's not just super intense, and I totally appreciate that as well. And I gotta say this too, the person who's doing the rat wrangling and the rat training was amazing. There were over 400 rats just for Socrates, another 300, 400 for Ben, not to mention all the other rats that are using this.
It's crazy. It's beautiful. It really truly is beautiful. Those rats are so well trained. They are maybe some of the best animal actors that I've ever seen. They do a great job. Very proud. Very proud. I feel every time Ben is on screen, especially Ben, Socrates a little bit too, but Willard kind of talks for Socrates. Mm-hmm. Every time that you see Ben sitting on anything, I can hear what he's saying. I'm writing dialogue for him in my head. That's how good he is. What a great actor.
And kudos, because there was a lot of shots of just the real Gambian rat, as well as animatronic puppet work, and CGI, and it's all just blended perfectly. This the film that you tell people a lot of this was done with CG. You can say for sure. There's a scene where a character is being attacked by a swarm of rats, and there's a lot of real rats mixed in with CGI rats, and they're just so blended perfectly. You would not be able to tell. The only sequence you can tell there are CGI rats is when the elevator's door open and the rats are crawling off of Willard's coat.
Yeah.
That's the only part that you can see there's actually is. One
of the things that I think was such a good touch of realism when it came to the rats is, especially later in the film when you start seeing more of the swarms of rats, you also see a whole bunch of rat poop. And that's not something that you needed to do in your production design, but oh boy, does it make it more realistic. So I forget about if there are CG rats because I see rat poop, and everybody knows the first thing that you see, if you have a rat in your house, the first way that you identify that is that there's poop somewhere. That is a level of realism and a level of thoughtfulness that went into this film that's stunning.
And that was such a great thing too about watching the production of this movie and people doing work on this, because even during their table reads, they had everyone from the production company and the cast just all there together, and they're all there to just work on this film. And people can talk bad things about other movies and whatnot, but if you see how movies are made and all the work that goes into them, you become somewhat forgiven of if a movie does bad or not. Like you, I saw this movie in theaters and totally enjoyed it. I don't think my friends enjoyed it as much as I did because I was just really into it's Crispin Glover just doing his own thing, and I absolutely love it. I love the fact that studio made him the marketing of this movie. I mean, they really pushed me. This is Crispin Glover's big starring role. He's been in other movies before, and I really wish that Glenn Morgan didn't do the whole test audience thing. And he said too in the commentary track and behind the scenes that he wished he pushed for his original version of this movie to have it be R-rated. But it was his first movie. He's done work on Final Destination and X-Files, Millennium, other stuff there. But this is his first time being a director. And when you're director of a big studio like New Line, and New Line's we should really test this out because we want to know how this is going to do. And the first test market does bad. The studio's well, PG-13 is a big thing. We should have this movie be PG-13. And he really wished he hadn't have done that. And I kind of wish now with the advent of but now it's difficult because people don't buy much DVDs anymore to have a director's cut version of Willard. But I don't know how well
I think
that would
what
do.
we should be pushing for instead, since Crispin Glover is still doing things, I think it would be cool to see a remake of Willard starring Crispin Glover.
Oh, okay.
I think he could do all of this again. I mean, one of the things, and I was just kind of thinking about this as you were describing him, one of the things that I think he does so successfully in this is that his entire body is in the acting. And so you can see there are times where he's getting frustrated and you're watching his cheeks shake. And that's an acting style that he has maintained through all of these years. So even in the more recent stuff that he's been doing, he still has this kind of intensity to him. And I think he could still do this character. I think that it would be cool to see Glenn Morgan direct it again. I think it would be cool to just redo a director's cut would be great, but reinvigorate the entire thing, because this is a story that is kind of timeless, right? It is about somebody who's getting bullied, regardless of if they've brought that upon themselves or not. And then they are using an unconventional method in order to get revenge. And that's timeless.
I like that. I'm going to suggest something else too. I think they could also remake Ben and have Crispin Glover play the little kid.
Yes. I think that there was some talk about remaking Ben after this came out, and then that just kind of dissolved. I have a vague recollection of that, but maybe I'm incorrect. It is challenging because the end of the original Willard is different than the end of the remake of Willard. So you would have to come up with a different way to get into the storyline of Ben.
Well, here's the thing too, Cayley, because the original ending of Willard 2003 was supposed to be like the original ending of Willard 1871, where Willard is, spoiler alert, he is murdered by the rats. But I want to get into that a little bit later there. There's one other sequence that I do want to talk about, and it is a sequence where Laura Harring's character is bringing her cat to Willard as like a gift. The cat is named Scully, which is a total dig on the X-Files, even though in the commentary, even though the commentary said it's not, it totally is. And
yeah,
Willard's
100% is.
Willard's like, all right, fine, I'll just set him inside there, and cat will be fine. Then we come to this great sequence where the cat is being hunted by these mice, set to the song Ben, the original Ben by Michael Jackson. And many people think of that song Ben from the original Willard, even though it was for the sequel, and actually was nominated for an Oscar, and I think it won a Golden Globe. Great song. Michael Jackson's original is just great. I love it as well. And so this cat's being chased by all these mice while the song Ben is being played, and it is brilliant. Don't worry, animal lovers, they never put the rat and the cat in the same spot because they worry the cat would actually go and eat all these mice. So they actually had trainers train the cat to jump on certain spots and to stand at certain places, and then in post they added in all the rats to make it look like the rats are chasing after the cat. Is absolutely brilliant. I just love the dynamic of that very much. So yeah, I just wanted to just briefly.
I thought there were two interesting things about that for me anyway. First of all, Laura Harring's character, her name is Caitlin, and there's a couple of times people call her Cat. And I thought it was interesting. So the giver of the cat is also Caitlin. And of course, there is relationships between rats and cats. Now, the other thing that I thought was really interesting about that sequence, because it's a harrowing sequence. You see this kitty Scully jumping all over the place and getting chased by the rats. The rats have taken control. The rats have learned how to swarm. Willard taught them initially, and now they are under the control of Ben. Ben is like telling them, go get this cat. And so the cat's kind of jumping everywhere, and it's very scary. And things don't end up good for the cat, is the end of that scene. But what is so interesting is that earlier in the movie, the rats are all kind of vying to get a dog, and this dog starts annoying Willard. And so Willard takes the dog, this little Pomeranian dog, and puts it in the suitcase with the rats. And you think in this opening sequence, this is relatively early on in the film, you're like, oh my God, that dog is done for. You hear the dog squealing, you hear the dog, like, you're like, there's no way that dog survived. They let the dog live, but they don't let the cat live.
That's true. Okay, that's brilliant. I've got to set that scene for our listeners out there. All right,
yes,
so
please.
Willard's getting revenge on his boss for treating him bad. So he takes all of his rats to Mr. Martin's garage and lets them chew into where his car is. It said earlier that Mr. Martin has this brand new car and he's really proud of it. So the rats go into the garage. They tear out the tires, which were actually licorice tires. So I should say that right now. So the rats are tearing through the tires, beating them up, and the car gets destroyed. And Mr. Martin comes out, and Willard escapes. I love Arlie Ermy's dialogue because he says at one point, "Run, and you only die trying."
Yeah.
And so
okay.
Willard gets out, and yeah, one of the dogs, I think it is probably Mr. Martin's dog, is chasing after him, just biting, and Willard's like, go away. And he puts the bait down. He says, "You want to see what's in the bait, you stupid little doggy?" And he puts the dog in the bait, and there was a line that he originally said that was cut out of the R version, where Willard says, "Tear him up." And that's going to be the line. But studios thought that was a little bit too rough to say that.
So don't you think that that's so interesting? I know people generally don't like animal deaths. A lot of the time people get more upset about animal deaths than they do about human deaths in movies. I thought it was very interesting that they were totally okay with killing a cat, but not okay with killing a dog. Like,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
it was, and I understand there's a special relationship between rats and cats. That's part of why I'm sure that decision was made. But it was a little weird for me. We can't kill a dog in a movie because everybody loves dogs. Some people hate cats, so we can kill a cat.
I think it was just more weird to have him say tear him up because I remember that was a little bit weird and kind of awkward to say. But yeah, seeing that dog in the bait, I really thought like the rats are gonna devour him. All right, there's gonna be nothing like but bones.
Yeah, he's a goner.
He's a goner. But hey, Willard has some nice parts of him. He won't let the dog go, and in his defense, Willard did not kill the cat. The team just put the cat inside. He really thought that the cat would scare away the other mice. Oh no, not anyways. And you talking about Willard and Socrates Socrates and Ben and Willard. It reminds me in a way of Fight Club. Because the dynamics between Socrates and Ben kind of reminds me just vaguely, and also Willard too, kind of reminds me vaguely about the dynamics between the narrator and Tyler Durden and Jack and those characters and the late
That's
dark.
really interesting.
I don't know. Plus, there's always that the leader dynamics between Ben and Socrates, where it's obviously Willard says to Ben, you're the leader after Socrates. And there's always seems to be the kind of like dynamics going on there. And I'm thinking about the scene where Ben is controlling these rats to do all these other things to chase after the cat. And Socrates is there and he's observing. And it kind of reminds me like towards the end of Fight Club where Tyler Durden, I almost said Jack Durden, but they're the same people. That's right, people. Fight Club, they're the same people, all right? Sorry for spoiling your mind there for a movie that's several years old right now, but if you're a movie fan and you're listening to this podcast, you've seen Fight Club before. But regardless, so Socrates and Ben being almost the same person where Socrates is always there, but he's always like observing, and Ben's doing all the work, so it could be like Socrates is also like Ben, and they're both the same person, and they're both the latent dark side, the yin and yang of Willard.
Two halves of a whole. Two halves of a whole, for sure. And Ben starts out as being more mischievous.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't necessarily start out towards the end. I think that you could argue that he has become evil, or at least that he's become obsessed with power is perhaps a better way. Not necessarily. He's become authoritative to a detriment. But he starts out as kind of mischievous. He's doing things that are against what Willard is saying. And despite the fact that Willard is assigning roles to the rats, despite the fact that he's saying Socrates is the leader, then Ben is second in command, despite the fact that he's saying those things, really Willard is in command. Theoretically.
Yes.
That is what should be. And Willard is too timid and meek to actually take on that role. And so he has to give those roles to the mice. And that's when we start seeing Ben sort of misbehaving to the extent that it stops being mischievous and it starts being evil.
Yeah. And very much speaking about the evil nature, there is a sequence where Willard's mother dies and is not quite sure how she dies. I think it was maybe because of fright of the rats, but she has a heart attack and dies, and it seems to me that Ben's the one that helped cause that. Maybe I'm wrong, I'm not sure, but I think he got it to happen.
I like that it's vague. So the way that we see her is that she has fallen down the basement stairs, and that's where most of the rats are hanging out. They're hanging out in the basement. And so there's a question of, did the rats try to trip her down the stairs, or did she see the rats and get spooked, or did she have a heart attack? all we know is that Ben is nibbling on her foot as like a little last hurrah. You know, we get to see the rats, and it's quite disgusting. I mean, talk about the difference between a PG-13 and an R rating. They really do get away with a fair amount of stuff for a PG-13 movie. Not that there's anything particularly vulgar about that scene, but it is quite graphic. It is rats eating a corpse. And usually when we see scenes like that in PG-13 movies, there's humor involved in it. And there's not a lot of humor there.
No, there was not. Yeah, that was absolutely great. And it's at this point in the movie, too, where they're at the funeral and the owner of the bank has told Willard that his mother owes a lot in taxes, and so the house is actually their house. But he could easily just sell it, pay back all the loans, and still have a good amount of money to go and buy a new place. Plus, Mr. Martin has said he'll buy the house so that Willard will have more money to just start his own life. And I want to ask you this, Cayley. Why do you think he does not go out and do that? I mean, his mother's gone, his dad's died. Is it because he feels responsibility to the rats in the house?
Maybe some responsibility to the rats in the house. The way that I guess I always read it was that he has sentimental value with that house, right? That's where his father. We see this whole scene again. You mentioned his father died of suicide. We see this whole scene where he's unpacking all of his father's old belongings, including a Swiss Army knife that is still covered in blood. But you know, more normal items like a watch and glasses and those sorts of things. We see these sorts of sentimental moments with Willard. I think that Willard doesn't like change as a character. I think that he wants to be isolated, and I think that the idea of moving to a different place is too terrifying for him.
Yeah, I mean, because you get stuck into like, you know, a certain situation or house. Like, I have a routine that I have right now. It took a while for like me to like get this house, which my folks help out with, and yeah, it would be very stressful for me to want to move or change things around, and I did that. Luckily, I have no rats in the house that I can control, so that's just one good thing right there, I could say, because it might be some revenge against some other former bosses that I've had for sure in the past. So that's another story for another time for sure. But
I will say also, before we move on from that scene, so I think it's like an attorney trustee, or like you said, like a bank person shows up at that funeral. Another thing that he says, which this is my like Willard Crispin Glover connection. He says to Willard, he says, "There's no need for a single man to be living in such a large house." And I just want to talk a little bit about the fact that Crispin Glover, he currently has a couple of residences, but one of his residencies is in Czech Republic. It's actually pretty close to Pardubice. I always forget the name of the town that he's in, but he lives in a chateau and it's beautiful. And he has wild peacocks, which is also very popular in Pardubice. It's like slightly outside of Prague. And I'm in love with him also, is the point of me telling that story. But he lives in so like, again, that's one of those scenes where I kind of feel like it like is mimicking Crispin Glover's real life, because he's saying there's no reason for a single man to be living in such a large house. And Crispin Glover in real life is a single man living in a large, beautiful house. Please bring me there with you, Crispin Glover.
Yes, I'm going to take Crispin Glover in these episodes, and bring my friend Cayley along there. That'd be great. All right. I will say this though too, like Crispin Glover based a lot of his performance on Klaus Kinski, because during the commentary he talked about Klaus Kinski and how he actually got to meet Werner Herzog. In fact, the director Glenn Morgan got to meet Werner Herzog because Werner Herzog was like staying with Crispin Glover, and Werner Herzog's like, you know, we stole a lot of shots from your movie, and Werner Herzog's like, I didn't notice, but you know, thank you.
But cool, yeah.
And I noticed that too.
Crispin Glover was also in. He did something in The Legend at Loch Ness, right?
Maybe he did. I don't quite remember. Maybe
I have a vague recollection of him being in that also, which is not. I don't think it's officially directed by Werner Herzog, but it is. That's a great movie if you have not seen it. It is like it's like a mockumentary style about the Loch Ness monster, and
what's it
Werner
called?
Herzog is in it. The Legend at Loch Ness, I think.
The Legend
something a lot. Yeah, it's Werner Herzog is in it, and then some sort of like the Land of Loch Ness, the Legend of Loch Ness, something along those lines. I think Crispin Glover is in that for a moment.
All right, I'm going to sidetrack for just a second there. We talked about Werner Herzog. Now, have you seen the movie Bad Lieutenant, Port of Calls, New Orleans?
Of course I have.
So that was like a sequel, sort of like remake of Bad Lieutenant, directed by Abel Ferrara. Harvey Keitel, Abel Ferrara. And I loved Werner Herzog's adaptation with Nick Cage. I'm thinking that you could have Werner Herzog do like a re-adaptation of Willard, and it would be completely different.
Yes, that's what I want. That would be so cool.
But still cast Crispin in this. But still cast Crispin. Don't change the casting.
I think that would be so amazingly rad. Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans is the first time that I liked Nicolas Cage as an actor. That is when I started to understand him as an actor, because when Werner Herzog cast him in that role, or whoever the casting director was, whenever he got cast in that role, I was so offended. I was like, Nicolas Cage cannot do Harvey Keitel. Harvey Keitel in the original Bad Lieutenant is one of the most evil, vile characters that has ever existed on screen. And you can't convince me otherwise. He is just disgusting. He's a disgusting, disgusting character. And I was like, Nicolas Cage can't do that. And then he did it. And then I was like, oh no, I like Nicolas Cage now. And I thank you, Werner Herzog, for doing that, because it was beautiful. Sorry, now I got off track.
That's okay. That's okay. We just started talking about other things, and I love it. But it kind of makes sense, too, because we mentioned before that Willard is a remake of a 1971 movie. The original one is produced by Bing Crosby. The White Christmas, Bing Crosby.
Know that.
He had his own production company, and he wanted to veer off from doing the other holiday fare or comedy sitcoms. So they had this book, the Rat Man's Notebook, that they wanted to adapt. And so they made a movie. The original one I want to get into had Bruce Davidson as Willard, Sandra Locke as the love interest, Ella Lancaster, as the mom. You will recognize her as being the original Bride of Frankenstein. So she's in that. And Ernest Borgnine as Mr. Martin. That's right. Basketball's Ernest Borgnine as Mr. Martin. Do check out the episode of Porn Stash Podcast. Your show, Basketball.
Yeah.
You talk on your show.
I did Basketball, but Porn Stash Podcast and I did Orgasmo together. So
That's right.
Lots and lots of good South Park related content.
That's true. So definitely go to One Show with Cayley's. Check out her basketball review. Very good stuff. I apologize for missing that up there. But you were on the Porn Stash Podcast talking about Orgasmo as well. They both had Trey Parker, Deanne Blanchard. So it's easy to get those things mixed up, because if you watch both Basketball and Orgasmo, they seem to go together very well. But regardless, the original one is a lot of fun. It's a lot more bright and colorful. And the new one, or the old one, Willard finds these rats outside. They're not so much in the house. They are outside because Willard's having a birthday party, and his mom is making him upset because he didn't want to invite his boss to the party. And you have all these people there, and they seem to, in the original, it seemed to be more of keeping him as like this little child as well. But they also want him to be more grown up. And everyone talks about you should be more assertive or be more like a man and what there. But Willard is an introvert. I mean, he's a lot like me in ways. He's just being an introvert character. It's difficult for him to talk to people. It takes a lot of time. But so he's not the type of character that goes out and sort of like gets what he wants and whatnot. So And
yeah, less assertive. Do you know what the original kind of reminds me a little bit of? Have you ever seen the movie Bad Ronald? It was a made-for-TV movie.
It sounds so familiar.
It's a weird one. I don't want to spoil anything about it.
Isn't that like a
so
Mad
I'm not
TV?
going to describe it.
Isn't that like a Mad
What?
TV sketch? Mad TV? Wasn't like a Mad TV sketch? Ronald or like he was
There
kind of a
might
mute.
have been. There might have been. So definitely not related to the movie. The movie, it was like just this junky made for TV movie, but it has these kind of like colorful, introverted, but also repression sorts of themes where you get a character who the reason that he hasn't flourished is probably due to his upbringing. And I feel like you see that a lot in the original Willard.
Okay, yeah, that's very true. All the characters are basically the same. Sandra Locke is in this. She's good. Ernest Borgnine is good, and he's mean, just not to the level I think that Arlie Ermy is mean in the remake. I also think it's funny too because in the original, Willard used the rats to do like a lot of like pranks. He brings rats to this party, and it's all the whole thing about girls being freaked out by, oh my gosh, there's rats everywhere. Oh my gosh, And at one point, he knows that Miss Martin is kind of stealing money from the company or using money to give to someone else instead of him because Willard's low on funds after his mother died. And so when Willard finds out that Mr. Martin is giving like his business partner funds the money, he uses the rats to freak out the people in the house so that he can steal money. So in the original, it's much more about him stealing other funds, but still vaguely similar. Bruce Davidson is good in the movie. It's such a weird difference between the film, and I like the fact that Glenn Morgan, the director, took it more like in a gothic suspense sort of way and brought up the horror more because there's horror in the original one, but not as much. And it surprised me too because the original Willard became like a big blockbuster success. It became huge. So huge that they made a sequel, Ben, in like 1972, where Ben befriends this little boy, and this little boy believes that he's the one that can... He doesn't believe that he can control the rats, but he thinks the rats are good. But there's like... All right. In Ben and all the rats are now criminal masterminds in this movie. I know you have not seen this movie in a while. Have you seen Ben before?
I've seen Ben before, but it's been a while.
So in this one, after Ben, escapes with all the rats, they start doing crime sprees. All right, cops come to this house location and they take on the cops. It's hysterical.
Yeah.
All right.
As you're describing it, I'm remembering all of the wackiness.
Nothing can stop these rats. So Ben is hiding out at this little boy's house, and this little boy is like, I think, dying of some sort of disease, and he has to have like an operation. And so Ben is like his best friend. And Ben, between being at the house, he's controlling these rats. They take over a grocery store. They cut off this town's complete food supply, so they have nowhere else to buy food. All right. Then they attack a health salon because it's next door to a cheese shop. All right. These rats are just vicious, and they're taking control of all the sewers there so much that these police chiefs are coming. They're investigating all these crimes because at one point, Ben and his crew are taking over like this fishing truck, and they get this fishing truck to get into an accident. And he's like, the show Penguin is out right now, and HBO Max talking about the mob thing going on in Gotham City. I just imagine Ben being like a mob boss, doing all these crazy adventures and getting all these rats to do things. It is absolutely just cheesy and glorious and all the best ways possible. Definitely check out Ben. Check out the original Willard. So getting back into Willard, the 2003 version, after Willard's being kind of like, picked on, there's a great moment where Willard is going to be fired from his boss and I'm pretty sure that Mr. Martin wants to fire Willard so that he can now just take over the house because Willard is going to lose the house. Baytide controls the
He
house.
doesn't have the money. Yeah.
He doesn't have the money, and I'm pretty sure that Mr. Martin can come in there, buy the house, and just get rid of it. And there's that great sequence where Willard is tearfully, kind of like telling Mr. Martin, just please let me keep my job. Please let me keep my job, or I'll do anything you say. I'll sell the house, and just breaks down right there. Beautiful moment. There was a lot of preparations going on in that scene, and Crispin Glover just gives it all there. And then we get the sequence afterwards where Willard is taking his rats to see Mr. Martin, and that whole sequence right there was.
So one of the things that I think is so beautiful about how this film was made is that we get to revisit this freight elevator 3 different times in the film.
Okay.
So the freight elevator, the first time that we see it, and this is where we kind of start seeing the rats really start doing their bidding, or Willard's bidding. We get to see the freight elevator for the first time when Mr. Martin, the boss, locks Willard in it. So relatively early on in the film, Mr. Martin locks Willard in there and says, "You're late again," and is just being horrible to him. And none of the other coworkers will even let him out of this elevator because Mr. Martin is so overbearing and so, he's just harassing Willard at this point. And finally, we have our lovely Caitlin comes and lets him out. And that's the first time that we see the elevator. So at first, the elevator is a literal cage. He is being locked in a cage like a rat.
I didn't think about that connection. That's brilliant.
Then this freight elevator becomes something powerful for Willard. We get to see, as Willard is coming in and he's bringing in the rats, we get to see the rats pouring off of him and coming out of this freight elevator in order to be able to go get Mr. Martin. And that becomes an incredibly stunning visual, perhaps one of the most beautiful moments of the film. And then later, this freight elevator becomes almost a coffin for what will become of Mr. Martin. And so I jumped ahead a little bit there.
No, that's
kind
is
of
great.
where we're leading into. And I love that freight elevator. And you made an interesting point in the beginning of us talking, which is, I don't really know what they do at this company. I don't really know what they do at this company. I have no idea.
I don't think it matters what they really do.
It doesn't. I started writing down a note. What are they selling? What is their product? And then I crossed it out because it doesn't matter. What matters is that we are in a rat race when we were at our jobs. And the thing that takes us to our jobs is this cage-like elevator. And that is so meaningful to the message of this film.
I used to have a job where I would pick supplies for offices, like printer parts and other things that I would ship out to other office companies. That was one of my jobs.
Yep.
But there are people upstairs that take all the orders of these parts. And I'm pretty sure that's what Willard is doing. He's taking custom orders of parts for all these companies and doing that. So that's what my assumption is, that he's doing all the ordering of parts to companies. And that's why Mr. Martin had a whole thing about, you don't want to make sure your purchase orders are getting bottlenecked. And a lot of people are being delayed. My people downstairs are being delayed. And I think that had to do with orders because I would get orders down to my area to pick certain parts to deliver them out to other companies. And that's what I did for a few years. So, but getting the part, so Mr. Martin is watching some very low grade porn. I mean, this is 2003. There were no videos back then. It's just grainy images. I mean, are we back in 1895 again?
Yeah,
it's like,
it was like waiting for the image to load like this.
Yes.
And then your computer crashes right here, right before the boobs. Like that was what I felt like looking at whatever.
It's actually, so like, what year are we back here again? Because it's taking ever for images to load. And he's on this very low grade website called Peekaboo, where I think this was revenge porn. These all look like amateur shots.
That's an interesting point.
Well, they were like amateur shots of these women being photographed from like the background, like they didn't know they're being photographed and whatnot. Like women just putting on their clothes, and it looked like their husbands or boyfriends at the time were taking photographs of them not knowing, because their faces always seem to be turned away. So
I think that you're totally right. There was also another. Did you notice as he's looking at this lovely website, there is a sign behind him that says "prudent aggression," and I was like, we're making some serious commentary. And you were talking about kind of the marketing of this film. I don't think only that it's, that they didn't exactly know the place of this movie, but I think that there's moments of this film that are, I don't want to call your average audience member stupid, but to have a sign behind somebody that says prudent aggression as they are watching porn late night in their office, and this is our evil character in the movie, that's pretty highbrow,
sure,
like commentary, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I didn't really notice that until you told me about it. So
it's very, and it is like not hidden at all. This was the first watch where I have ever noticed that, but it is like blatantly like lit up prudent aggression.
Well, I wonder why they didn't mention that in the commentary. They did, however, mention that Mr. Martin has a block of cheese paperweight on his desk.
I did not notice that.
To talk about,
That's
the
somehow
whole
better than prudent aggression.
But even though too, like, that is great. But even the scene, so while he's looking at this porn, there's like images of these rats kind of showing up, and they're not quite there, so he had to cut into a closer shot to see the rats in the shadows, and then Willard shows up, and
it's like the birds. The rats in this scene look like the birds.
Yes, they do.
To me,
100%. That's true. And Willard shows up, and Martin goes, "What's? Look at all the rats." Yes, look at all the rats. We come to talk to you. And there's one F-bomb where Mr. Martin says, "Get them the fuck out of here." And then Willard just gets into this whole monologue about how that he stole the company from his dad and is trying to push him out of the house, and has been mean to him this whole time. And the one great line Willard says that, "You made me hate myself. Well, right now, I like myself."
Yeah.
And they get into a confrontation.
Line.
During the behind-the-scenes documentary, it was called "The Year of the Rat," directed by Julie Ng or Julie Nig, and she's a production assistant that Glenn Morgan had come out to shoot this little EPK, little feature for the behind the scenes for promotional use. And her documentary just goes in the whole aspect of the whole making of the film. It's brilliant. But during that documentary, it shows like behind the scenes footage of Crispin Glover and Arlie Ermy rehearsing the fight sequence and them just trying different things. And Arlie Ermy's like, "I think that you should go ahead and swing on me here, and I'll just go ahead and attack you here." And they had to work on that scene many times to make it feel as real and as good as it is. And Arlie Ermy says the one thing that he hates most to do during his whole like attack scene is doing anything twice. He does not want to do another take of it because you have to put all this makeup and then take it off again and do other things to prepare for it. So do it all in one take. But Mr. Martin gets chased into the elevator, and in the R-rated cut, there is a lot more gore that happens when the rats are on him, and a lot more intensity with Willard stabbing at him and the rats kind of bite into them. I mean, the rats are obviously taking chunks out of his flesh, and there's a lot more gory, gooey wonderness in this. And you think to yourself, well, how can these rats actually devour anyone? I mean, they're just rats, just shake them off. But no, that many rats on you, biting at you, it's going to be difficult to get away. And
a swarm is a swarm is a swarm.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
That's true. And these swarm are just going to gas you in one little bite, and you're just just creeps the hell out of me. But
yes, agree.
Arlie Ermy just plays that just absolutely perfectly. Oh yeah. Just thoughts about that, Cayley.
Oh, I mean that scene is so harrowing. Again, this is our revenge moment. So like we have hated this character of Mr. Martin, even if we feel a little bit sympathetic for him, because again, maybe Willard as a professional is not the best guy.
No.
Even if we feel a little bit of sympathy for Mr. Martin is the evil character of this movie. And so we've been waiting for this moment. We knew it was going to happen. After we see the cat get got, we know that Mr. Martin is going to get got. And I am just like, I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, okay, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And again, it feels so powerful that that is happening in the elevator, because now this elevator it was originally Willard's cage. Then it was his powerful moment. And now it is, Mr. Martin's coffin.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool way to transform our work environment, because effectively that elevator is representative of our work environment, is that we all feel like we're part of the rat race. And then at some point, maybe we try to get out of that. We take it and we become powerful with it. And then who doesn't want to kill their boss? Come on. So it's like, it's a very like exciting and elating moment. And I'm happy to hear that there was a gorier cut of it, because I am a gore fiend. I would like to see all of the disgusting. I would like to watch rats tear him apart limb from limb. I would like to see one rat pulling one arm and another rat pulling the other arm, and eventually I want to see the goofy stuff. And I think that for me, that's something that's really cool. So in at least the theatrical release of this movie, it could use a little bit more. That doesn't take away from any of the power of what's happening, though.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Brilliant. Do watch the deleted scenes, because a lot of it is the stuff that was the original R-rated version that is cut out of the movie. And it's absolutely great. All right. So we're getting to the end of the movie here. So Willard is left. He kills all the rats. Puts gas or some sort of element to kill all of them. In the original one is much more graphic and much more disturbing, because he drowns all the rats, and you just see all the bubbles floating up, and he buries them.
I think is a reference to like the plague, right? Because that's how they were getting rid of rats during the plague. I think is that they were drowning them.
Oh, sure. No, I get that.
So,
it's just
it's interesting to see that now in Willard 2003. We are getting like the technology of like, we go to the store and then we buy the rat killer. And here's the first method that we choose, and then here's another method. And sometimes we use the traps, and sometimes we use the sticky glues. And now we use the effectively bomb.
Yeah. And you never hear the rats whimper a little bit in the remake, but there's something about the original where he's holding the rats down and you see the bubbles all float up to the top.
Oh,
That's just much more just creepy in my mind, just thinking of these rats drowning. So
that is ingrained in my memory.
Yeah. So after Willard, kills all the rats and gets rid of all of them, he decides. I think this is where Laura Harring's character comes in there, and she wants to go out to dinner with him. But in the corner of his eye, Willard still sees that Ben is around. And he pushes her out and says, talk to you later. All right, don't worry about anything now. And he goes to chase after Ben, and he says, you want some food, Ben? I got some food for you, but there's like a trap in the bait.
A trap.
And he goes to like attack.
Lures him in.
And I love that great line after he does get Ben in the trap. He is like, I don't love you. I love Socrates, but I hate you. Love that.
I love that. It's so powerful. It's that good and evil that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's the I am trying to get rid of you. I'm trying to get rid of my evil side. And I can't. It just keeps coming back. It keeps coming back.
So after he thinks he got Ben chews off his own foot, or just does something to his foot that he's able to escape. And
gnarly.
The rats come back, and they all like get after Willard, and Willard's trying to escape. He's got that one sequence where he's like yelling out of a window, and he's just so perspired. And this is a great scene too, because in the behind the scenes footage, you're seeing him perform that scene where he's got this sweat drenching everywhere. He's just like fully committed to the role. And then the old cut, and then the sweat's gone, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going, everybody?" And I was like, "What the fuck? That is just."
How did you do that? Yeah.
I was just blown away by how he can become so deeply into his character. And even Ermy said during the commentary is that during the making of this movie, I met Willard. Willard is a wonderful guy. Crispin is one of the most intelligent actors, but when he's doing that role, he's Willard. So I'm not just acting with Crispin Glover, I'm acting with Willard. And I think a lot of the cast and crew are doing the same sort of reaction, because when he's doing a scene, he is that character. And the way he can just shut it on and off, just...
That's amazing. I love hearing that. Right, that makes me so happy.
And then, so we get to the end of the movie where Willard is being kind of like chased by this rat. He goes up to the top and he sees Ben. He's like, "Ben, I thought me and you were friends." And Ben just bites him everywhere, chews after him. And he falls to his death with all these rats crawling over him. And you think that he's a goner. And
very much like how the cat fell. So we saw earlier in the film, the whole movie is leading us to this moment of, we already saw that this is exactly how the rats got the cat to die. And now they're moving on to a bigger target. And that bigger target is Willard.
So in the original ending of this movie, after Willard is devoured, they go to the outside of the house and the camera pans up to a window and you see Ben limping just to the side of the window, and it stops and it fades out. That was the original ending of the movie. That is the version that they tested out, and audiences were upset that Willard died. They tested this movie in just like one area of the country, and the people were upset that Willard died. Willard's not necessarily like a hero character. He's fascinating, but I did not mind that he died in the original cut.
Yes, but I agree. I tend to like, though, I like either vague endings or I like surprising endings. I like endings that I'm not expecting. So when I saw the original, I mean, you know, you kind of expect him to live just because he's the hero of the movie. So I liked the original movie in that sense, but I do like what they add on in 2003 version.
Okay, so what's got me before, I feel like I'm confusing people by saying the original 1971. No, the original ending they shot for the 2003 version.
Oh, yes.
Willard died after he jumps off and gets devoured by the rats, and you pan up to the opening of the house and Ben's there. That shot of Ben limping in the window, that was going to be the original ending of the 2003 version. That ending tested horribly with test audiences, so they reshot a new version where Willard comes back and he, smashes Ben to pieces and kills him. Then we cut to a new sequence where Willard is inside a mental hospital and he sees a new mice there. He becomes friends with them, and he's like, "We gotta be quiet. Quiet like...
We have to wait.
We have to wait and be patient. Quiet like a little mouse." And I love that. There's also another shot of the ending where the owner of the bank comes in to talk about taking over the house, but it's just stuff that doesn't need to be in there, so they cut that out of the theatrical version. But yeah, Willard's still around. He has a new rat friend. Is he going to use the rats to escape from prison? Are we going to get a prison break movie with rats in them? We'll never know. I wish we would get a prison break movie with rats in it. That would be absolutely great, where rats take over guards and everything, and they have...
That's the Werner Herzog. It's like bad rat lieutenant, board of call, mental ward.
I just see a bunch of rats almost like dressing up in a human suit to take over things, like just this big giant rat, just all and then the open up the
I'm
cop suit
in.
and all these rats
I'm
jump out
in.
and attack people. Just
I
so much more
love
things.
it. I think that's perfect.
Oh my gosh, I kind of went everywhere around this movie, from the storyline to us talking about production themes, talking about other movies with this, but I had generally a fun time watching this movie again, and I could watch it again. The DVD also has, like I said before, it has commentary from Glenn Morgan and one of the, I think James Wan is on the commentary track, as well as Crispin Glover and Arlie Ermy, and it's really good. The music video for Ben, I should talk about that too, because during the marketing of this movie, which I have played for you during our break right there, in fact, I'm going to play part of it right now, because fuck it.
We both found what we were looking for, with a friend to call my own. I'll never be alone, and you, my friend, will see you've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me. Ben, you're always running here and there. You feel you're not on my own.
Sorry, I messed up on that, but I played just a little bit of that. On the DVD, there is a music video, and I was trying to find the video to play for this episode, but it's really difficult for me to find the video portions to put in this. And I'm hoping if you ever cover this on your channel, all right,
Yes.
you'll probably get into more details than we're doing here right now. So I greatly would appreciate you doing one on this. But the music video, directed by Crispin Glover, is brilliant. Have you seen the music video for Ben?
I have. So okay, there. One of the reasons that it's hard to find, and one of the reasons that, first of all, I think that you and I covered pretty much everything for this movie. I don't think that there's a lot more to say. I love what our discussion has been. But second of all, I don't. The reason that music video is so hard to find relates to a lot of Crispin Glover's music videos. So they are heavily copyrighted. I forget what production company owns them, but I tried to play a very small snippet of his music video, Clowny Clown Clown, on one of my videos. And I believe that both Ben and Clowny Clown Clown were released on his same album. And I believe that he made those, I think he made the music videos close together. I might be incorrect about that. I could be totally wrong about that. But they keep, I played probably about a 1 second clip of Clowny Clown Clown, and I got copyrighted striked for it.
Oh shit, okay.
Yeah, there is something about whatever his production company was before he started taking control over that. The music videos are held very tightly, and so it's really hard to find them. But oh my goodness, the Ben one is so good. He's so wacky. He's such a wacky guy. I love it.
So in the video, Crispin is on stage. It also features Arlie Ermy and a bunch of other people in the audience, and he's doing this duet with a rat on this pillow that comes off the ceiling there. They both are floating down, and he's doing this moment. He's bringing the rat to other people on this table. A bunch of beautiful women show up on stage with them, and then he has all these rats that are like cotton balls and whatnot dancing over them. It is just
so good.
And I love the fact that his cover of Ben, like I mentioned before, it was originally sung by Michael Jackson for the 73 version of Ben. And I like the fact, too, that it incorporates that same accordion score that Shirley Walker had in the film itself. So it sort of matches that tone. And it is just a much more somber. It's much more of a love story. I mean, it feels like a love story more than the Michael Jackson version. The Michael Jackson version is about friendship in a way, but in the Crispin Glover made into much more of a love song, like a Parisian love song in a way. I don't know. It's just a song I would have at a wedding,
Yeah, I think that you're right, and I never thought about it that way. But that is kind of also how he treats the character. He treats the character, and he treats both Socrates and Ben as characters that are part of love, even though they don't. In particular, Ben doesn't have all of the love characteristics. That's really interesting.
So love that. Beautifully shot. If you got the DVD, there's actually specific commentary by Crispin Glover himself about how he shot the film, and he's just straight to the point. Like, I shot it here, I got these actors, this, and it's a very short commentary track, but it's fun because you get to hear Crispin Glover in his natural voice, and I'm late to see more films that he directed. Yeah. Because I know he has. I don't know if you saw any of his other films that he directed, Cayley.
Yeah, he did what is it? And oh my God, why can't I think of the name? He was going to do a trilogy. There's only been 2 so far, I think.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember
those
the names
ones.
of them.
So there was never a theatrical release of those movies. It's What Is It and whatever the other one is. But he intentionally did not do a theatrical release, but I believe he still is actually going around and showing them. He just released also starring in, I believe, a movie called Mr. K, which I have not seen yet, but I know that just premiered at Toronto International Film Festival, and he was there, and I was very sad to not go and throw myself at him. But he is just a talented, wonderful human, and I think that this movie perfectly showcases him.
That could be a series for an upcoming documentary that me and you could shoot. Us trying to find Crispin Glover places.
Yes,
right?
Please. I used to joke that if I was ever going to make a documentary movie, it would be about wow, this is an embarrassing and salacious thing to say. I am also in love with River Phoenix. He is my other big celebrity crush. And so I used to always joke that my big documentary that I was going to make would be me trying to reconstruct River Phoenix's ashes. But a part of that documentary would be me discovering that he was cremated, so I could no longer fuck his bones. But I never did end up making that. So perhaps we should focus on the living and make a Crispin Glover documentary about me trying to say hello to him.
I don't know. Some necrophilia rock action, Cayley, could be a new thing. We could do our own version of Necromantic.
Yeah, it's true.
See?
If River Phoenix is involved, I'm in.
Okay, well, hey, it's not usually my thing there, but hey, I mean, kinks are kinks, and I will totally support everyone in their kinks badge right there. There is another movie that Crispin Glover was involved with, and I'm just trying to, you guys just give me one moment here, because I want to just tell people about this before we go. But Roger Avery made a sequel to Killing Zoe not too long ago, and it's something called Lucky something. I just gotta pull up his filmography. Lucky Day. So Crispin Glover is in a movie that came out in 2018 called Lucky Day, where he plays this assassin trying to chase after Luke Bracey character. But yeah, he's good in that one there too. Lucky Day.
I haven't seen that one yet, so I have to.
Okay, so that's especially since you're a big Crispin Glover fan.
That's in my homework. Yes.
Okay. Well, I gotta say, Cayley, thank you so much for being on the show. Also, I know exactly what to get for you for any Christmas or holiday things here. Taco Bell and things with Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover hair clippings, please.
Okay, really? Oh.
Thank you so much for having me. This was absolutely incredible. I cannot say enough good things. I am constantly impressed with your ability to talk about film, your interpretation of movies, and your memory of movies. It's truly incredible, and I always feel honored to be able to come and join you on your channel. So thank you.
The honor is totally mine. Big lover of your content you have on your channel as well.
Thank you.
Love the It's Pat video that you've done. I mentioned before, you did stuff about the basketball episode that I have not thought about that movie in years, and you were brilliant with your basketball analogy as well. Do check her out there. Do also check her out on the Who Are These podcasts as well. Yep. Fun show, as much as they made them be for making fun of our show. If it wasn't for them, we would not have met, and I'm thankful for that, because you have just been...
I'm thankful every day. It's a wonderful life. Thank you again so much.
Thank you. Before we go, we should mention to you right now that if you're a Patreon member, you're hearing this episode or watching this episode way advanced than everyone else because this episode has been released in December. So thank you for watching on the YouTube and other places. But if you want to get our content earlier, please become a Patreon member. Again, patreon.com/cinemarecallpod. Thank you very much to all of our wonderful Patreon members. And I am going to really quickly, if I can find my notes, which I had here. No, I lost all my... Oh, wait, there it is. Okay. So really quickly, I'm going to just tell our Patreon members just a quick hi and thank you. So thank you to Jeanette Miller on other platforms on AKA Jeanette. Thank you. She was one of our voice cast members for our Reservoir Dogs audio drama. Go check that out. Jen McQuaid from Shot and Applaud. Ladies Come Back. I miss your episodes. Jason Soto from Rabbit Hole Podcast. Please check out episodes of The Rotten Truth that me and Jason host over at Rabbit Hole Podcast, where me and Jason review movies that have gotten a low score on Rotten Tomatoes. We have done so far Madam Web, Freddy vs. Jason. We just covered Howard the Duck, which you were on our episode not too long ago. And that was Jason's first time in a long time, so that was fun talking about Howard the Duck and about my sexual awakenings happening with that movie because Leah Thompson is gorgeous in that. So thank you.
Do your duck feathers.
Oh my gosh, yes, they're gonna rise up right there thinking about her in that. Oh, Steve W, who doesn't have a website, but thank you, Steve. Matt and Ashley from Mashley at the Movies. Linda Castro from Bedknobs and Broomflits, also voice actor in our Reservoir Dogs audio drama. And finally, Donnie Roberts at Unreal Gold. He does Cage's Kiss. He's the co-host of Donnie's Choice. We're going to come back and do more Donnie's Choice episodes. We released episodes on our YouTube right now with Prince of Darkness and Poltergeist 2. We also have Freet to be released soon and RoboCop 2 and bunch of other films for Donnie's Choice, so definitely check that out. So yeah, if you listen to us everywhere, just type on your website, Cinema Recall Podcast. We're available on all types of platforms. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your support. I'm starting my words because I'm next to Cayley here, the most gorgeous, beautiful, funny, intelligent co-host of Once Over with Cayley, Lucy Tate Bots from other platforms as well. Just gorgeous, wonderful. I definitely gotta get to your Patreon subscribing page this month, and so I definitely will do that. I'll plug your Patreon page and our show notes as well as your YouTube show, so definitely check out her stuff. Very cool stuff, much more composed, intelligent. I just ramble my thoughts everywhere.
No.
And
You make me feel unprepared every time I talk with you. You're amazing.
Really? Oh gosh, no. But yeah, that's it right now. Thank you. Go watch some original content movies, everyone. Go watch more Crispin Glover movies. Go watch more eccentric, crazy remakes. What is a horror movie that you want to have remade? Like a movie that you don't think gets enough love. An older movie that you think would be a good remake. Let us know, and we'll talk about it on the next episode. But anyways, folks, that's all. Bye, everybody.